At 2:47 a.m., Donald Trump posted a message that didn't just irritate U.S. allies. It sent shockwaves through the core of the Western financial and security system, an institutional network worth roughly $27 trillion that has underpinned global stability since the Bretton Woods era. Most commentators dismissed it as another emotional outburst. That interpretation misses what actually happened. This was not a tantrum. It functioned as a deliberate legal and economic pressure move that, from a prosecutorial standpoint, looks alarmingly similar to witness intimidation on a geopolitical scale. Within hours of the post, a series of highly unusual actions unfolded. The European Central Bank convened an emergency meeting without notice. Lloyd's of London halted new sovereign debt insurance for more than 10 European countries, freezing a multi-trillion-dollar market. Germany's constitutional court suddenly accelerated a long-dormant case related to military spending and scheduled oral arguments. Institutions of this magnitude do not move at that speed because of online rhetoric. They move when they perceive structural risk. At the same time, Trump remains a defendant in multiple serious legal matters: federal document cases, obstruction inquiries, and major financial investigations in New York. Every one of these cases depends on international cooperation. Prosecutors rely on treaty-based legal assistance, intelligence sharing, and financial transparency from the same alliance framework Trump publicly threatened. When a defendant attacks the institutions that possess evidence about him, that is not politics. In ordinary circumstances, it would be viewed as obstruction. Allies noticed. Within 2 days, the Netherlands announced a broad review of U.S. legal assistance requests. This is extraordinary, given that the Netherlands processes enormous volumes of American subpoenas and hosts key international courts. France's finance minister publicly stated that France will honor treaties with partners who honor their commitments, language that effectively conditions cooperation. Germany's intelligence services leaked that they are reassessing information-sharing protocols with countries that demonstrate unreliable alliance behavior. That includes financial intelligence, targeting data, and evidence streams essential to transnational prosecutions. From a legal perspective, this is unprecedented. Defendants are not supposed to influence the systems that gather evidence against them. Yet Trump is doing so indirectly through foreign policy threats. If any private citizen attempted something similar, prosecutors would immediately argue witness tampering and obstruction. But because the mechanism is geopolitical rather than personal, it is being treated as campaign messaging. International cases already show how fragile legal cooperation can be. Complex prosecutions often collapse not because evidence does not exist, but because delays from foreign partners cause statutes of limitation to expire, witnesses to vanish, or financial trails to go cold. Trump-related investigations have already depended on records from Germany, Scotland, Panama, and elsewhere. If those channels slow or become conditional, cases weaken almost instantly. There is also a dangerous precedent. Authoritarian leaders have long used strategic assets as bargaining chips to blunt legal or economic pressure. When Turkey's president threatened NATO operations in response to U.S. sanctions, penalties were quickly softened. That is leverage-based negotiation. Trump appears to be adopting the same logic, but deploying it against the very systems tasked with investigating him. The deeper issue is constitutional. The Justice Department operates on the premise that no one is above the law. But that principle assumes prosecutors can obtain evidence. If a defendant can pressure or destabilize the international mechanisms that supply that evidence, the foundation of equal justice begins to crack. Courts can issue orders, judges can sanction obstruction, but they cannot compel foreign governments to cooperate. When evidence sits overseas, enforcement becomes dependent on diplomacy rather than law. This creates a scenario in which prosecutors face an impossible tension, pursue accountability and risk diplomatic fallout, or factor geopolitical consequences into charging decisions. The moment foreign policy considerations enter prosecutorial judgment, independence is compromised. That is precisely the environment Trump appears to be trying to create, not to win in court, but to weaken the court's relevance. If this strategy succeeds even partially, it establishes a blueprint for future powerful defendants. Anyone with sufficient political or economic influence could claim the same right to pressure institutions that hold evidence against them. Accountability would become optional for elites. What we are witnessing is not merely a political dispute or alliance squabble. It is a stress test of whether the American legal system can function when a defendant possesses the ability to destabilize the very infrastructure that supports investigations. If justice depends on the goodwill of foreign governments, then it ceases to be justice and becomes negotiation. This moment extends far beyond Trump. It speaks to whether rule of law remains an enforceable principle or becomes a conditional arrangement subject to power dynamics. The outcome will not be decided in a courtroom alone. It is being shaped in diplomatic channels, intelligence agencies, and financial institutions, all reacting to the ripple effects of a single early morning post. And that reality should unsettle anyone who believes that law, rather than leverage, is supposed to be the ultimate authority.